Hello, crew. This is the mission 56, organized by Space and Log Station Habitat Marte. This mission is happening during November, and today we have the presentation of Davi Souza about the operation of a greenhouse. Okay, and okay, Davi, I'm let you as the roles of the meeting, and now it's possible you share your screen.
Thank you very much, Professor. Hello again to all the crew. I will be sharing my screen right now. Let me start my presentation. It's a pleasure to be here as a invited research. And when you can see my screen, just confirm me, okay? All right. So, starting the presentation. Hello again, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here presenting about my favorite facility, the greenhouse station. This is our crew of mission 666, and I will be passing through these topics about the greenhouse. I will be presenting you internal design, also some technologies, some topics related to management and protocols, and also related to the spin-offs technologies to be applied on Earth. So now starting the presentation, I always want to bring, I commonly bring this picture here to present you the idea of not only the greenhouse, but also for the whole habitats and all the facilities, how would be the survival in these facilities. So I bring this, I take this picture from a paper called Minimal Number of Settles for Survival on Another Planet. And just to present you this pyramid, is just to consider that in another planet we have two main systems that are the energetic and industrial systems that need to be incorporated into the building. And among these three main equipments and also systems, we need to consider an ecosystem that is a living system that we will be having an atmosphere, the living systems, living organisms, the water, and also other natural resources that will be necessary for the habitat. And after that, we have the main factor that is in the top of the pyramid, that is the human factors. So we need to consider for the whole facilities, not only the systems and the equipments, the materials, but the main factor associated to the facilities are the human factors. We need to consider that the astronauts will be in another planet far from Earth, and it's necessary to have a well-being, also a good mental, provide them a good mental health. So that's why I like this picture very much, because during my presentation, I will consider not only the systems and the technologies, but I will be considering the human factors associated to them. My proposal for the internal design, this is a master plan proposed by Yashato during the mission 47. As you can see, the greenhouse is a facility almost in the middle of the whole habitat. And for logistic reasons, as you can see, the idea is to provide the amount of food necessary for the other facilities. The greenhouse will be the center, the facility that will be providing a regular food production and extensive food production that will be delivered for the other stations, for the main station, the health facility, the engineering center, and the sanitation center. So just to present you some ideas, some logistic reasons also related to the greenhouse associated to the other facilities. We have the association, the collaboration with the health facility is that the greenhouse will be also providing some phytotherapics and other crops that may be useful for medicines and to produce some drugs there. Related to the engineering facility, it's interesting to consider the technologies, the collaboration between technologies to be supporting the food production. And then with the sanitation center would be the water management for irrigation and also for the crops. And also if we consider a kind of phytopurification, would be the greenhouse would be helping the sanitation center to clean the water and make the water more cleaner, right? Okay. And for the main station, the idea is to provide the amount of food necessary for the whole crew to be stored there. And these are some factors that are correlating the greenhouse with the other facilities. Another visual concept here, just to present you the location of the greenhouse facility, also proposed by Yash. The internal design, the idea of the internal design would be a facility with 8 meters of diameter and 3 floors. I'm considering for a greenhouse an efficient and reliable structure to promote favorable conditions for the cultivation and growth of plants. It's also interesting to consider that I believe for the greenhouse it be more necessary to have an artificial environment, and the systems will be providing this artificial environment. We need to have a more similar environment as we have here on Earth to provide the crops favorable conditions to grow, to be growing, and also to have a good development. The facility needs also to provide a dormitory with beds for the astronauts, considering the case of isolation that we are facing. Um, the dormitory, a small kitchen and dining room, a toilet, and also an entertainment area. I consider it also like an area for exercise, for physical exercise. Just to present you the idea is to have in the ground floor we have a social entertainment area, would be more like a circulation area, and a sleeping and toilet area. And when we go to the other floors, we need to have an idea of the couple. So we have the coupled areas to avoid any kind of contamination. In the first floor, we would have the photobioreactors to cultivate algae that I will be presenting more details during the presentation. And also the monitoring area and the labs. I can also consider a dry lab and a wet lab for biotechnology and for other biological purposes. And in the second floor, we would have an isolated area to avoid the most part of the contamination that we have there. That will be cultivating, will be the more extensive cultivation area, and we would have the reservoirs in this structure to have technologies like vertical garden, aquaponics, and other technologies to cultivate crops and to have this regular and reliable growth of plants. And just to present you the division, this is more an idea of the internal design. We can consider the energetic systems that is connected to the habitat. It's also interesting to say that this is a proposal made by Wade Wamelink. Is a researcher at the University of Wageningen in Holland, Netherlands. And just to present you, he's a researcher on that research about crops production in a Mars soil simulant. And here, as you can so I'm considering the labs in the second floor with some crops, some like laboratory proposals and crops to have more crops that needs more attention attention and needs to monitoring the development of this. On the last floor, we would have more extensive food production. Some applied technologies, um, just to have an idea. As I mentioned, we would have the systems, the life support system, to provide the food, the air, and the water for the self-sufficient and sustainable human presence on Mars. So we need to have food, a regular food production. We need to have a regenerated air and also well managed water. So considering the sustainable presence on Mars, these are the three main topics that the technologies need to be operating in a regular and efficient way. The idea for the water systems is to have a closed loop system with decoupled reservoirs. And the idea of this decoupling would be to avoid the widespread contamination. Um, like if we have if the greenhouse an extensive food production, if the cultivation area are contaminated, um, it's a bad thing. So we would have a lot of losses, and we need to avoid that. And other support technologies that I will be presenting with more details. Just an example, the robots and automated systems for optimal operational procedures, data collection, detect some failures, reuse and recycling practices. And just to considering to you, to present you some ideas of monitoring systems would be the crop statistics, the water quality, the detection of disease and biosystem status. And it's also interesting to mention to you that in this weekend, me and Professor Julio was participating in a hackathon here in Brazil, and we had a proposal of like a platform to provide this data to be coupled with these monitoring systems and provide all of this data in a dashboard for the eye of like if necessary to have a system that take this data and is also associated with artificial intelligence, and we would be having some reports and also regular checks, and also if necessary any kind of warning system for the crops, because if we have any loss, or any risk that may be or any fail that may be putting all the systems in risk, we need to have a like an efficient management, an efficient maintenance, and an efficient task to be avoiding these issues. Also, I bring here for you a recent presentation made by me during the Mars Society Convention. This was a paper, a proposal of paper of me, Professor Julio, and also other members from Mission 42, related to the greenhouse growth systems. The name of the paper is a proposal of novel approach in deploying greenhouse facilities for life support and food production on Mars. And the idea of this paper, of this presentation, was to present the dependence of the growth systems on the infrastructure. So we need to have we need to have the idea how would be the infrastructure to see what are the growth systems that would be operating there. So for optimized biosystems, the idea is to guarantee a proper energetic performance and avoid the associated challenges to grow crops in space. So most necessary thing for the growth systems is to have a lower energetic consumption, and also to avoid the most challenging food tasks associated to grow crops. Just to present you the idea of self-sufficiency and resilience habitat would be, as I mentioned, a lot of monitoring systems. And just to separate here two main aspects associated to these CEA systems would be the plant growth that it would be considered in the greenhouse design and to avoid critical situations. And the systems associated to circular irrigation would be the water systems and also the optimal resource usage or resource reuse. Um, and these are other technologies that would be also useful to be integrated in the farming environment. As I mentioned before, the vertical farming, also some bioregenerative systems like algae, an example, um, and other interesting kind of bioregenerative systems. As I mentioned, the photo purification would be an interesting too. Um, uh, Environmental control with sensors, renewable energy, artificial lighting, thermal regulation with HVAC systems that would be heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, sensoring and automation using embedded technologies, also artificial intelligence, machine learning, algae cultivation, as I mentioned, with the use of photobioreactors, and other interesting biotechnologies like GMO, that is genetic modified organisms, biorepositories, as I mentioned, the phytopurification and bioremediation. That these are some interesting procedures that we use living organisms or microorganisms to help on the food production, like to avoid any kind of contaminants, to increase the attaching of the nutrients by the crops, and there are many others used for this kind of biotechnologies to help and increase the production of the crops. Some necessary technologies, as I mentioned, would be integrated systems with robots, um, computer vision, monitoring systems, and other techniques to grow crops. As I mentioned, the vertical farming, hydroponics, aquaponics, and aeroponics too. And here I bring this picture from a paper that was presenting about the Sirona greenhouse. That is a proposal of the greenhouse for to consider the well-being of the astronauts, their ergonomics, to make tasks more ergonomics, and also to to have an efficient use of areas. You can see associated with we have the tanks, the fish tanks in the floor of the infrastructure. We also have some robotic arms that would be helping the astronauts too, just to have an idea of another concept. And other technologies that would be useful, the sorry, fiber optics that would be helping the systems to put the light inside of the structure. This would be collected from the sunlight. We also would have some green walls associated with robots and robotic arms with some trails too. Also computer vision to see any kind of contamination, or if we have any crops or any vegetable that are ready to be consumed and harvested and consumed. Some possible resource to be generated in situ would, as I mentioned, we would have the algae cultivation with photobioreactors. The algae cultivation is really interesting because we have one solution for many other uses. That would be the edible biomass. As you can see in this picture, we have a spirulina bar that is consumed in ISS, already consumed in ISS. A biofuel. I presented in previous mission about the use of algae as a propellant for rockets. Just an example. The CO2 to the dioxide to oxygen conversion, the gas conversion inside of the structure, and also some effluent treatment that this would also be integrated to the sanitation system. And just to present you a brief overview about the use of green technologies in space, such as algae. like propellant production, the liquid biofuels, some hybrid systems, and also other approach that would be useful for Moon and Mars, and also here on Earth. Other possible resource to be generated in situ, we would have a custom manufacturing. The idea of to produce crops and also algae to be to have other deliveries, other manufacturing that would be useful for the greenhouse, like some plant-based manufacturing, like bioenergy, where that would be the generation of energy with wastes of organic matter. The biopharma, using some plants, some crops as raw material for medicines and phototherapy. Just to have an idea, there are some interesting research that consider the use of lettuce as a raw material to produce medicine. Just to have an idea. And other biostructures, as you can see this in the picture on the right, um, we have the bamboo used as as a, a grow bed for vertical garden. And we have other tools manufacturing would be the modeling of structuring elements, and other interesting tools would be like this that I'm presenting in this picture, that is a optical fiber based on is an algae. And this structure is edible, biocompatible, and also biodegradable, and have many applications in the medical field that would be useful for the health center. And this would be other resource that would be transported from Earth, that would be the modified seeds, some pollinating insects and bugs like bees and ladybugs, or also germ plasm banks and other living organisms. As you can see, some seeds and also some small crops that would be useful to be transported inside the rocket, and like would be more easier to arrive on Mars with these crops than other bigger crops. Related to the management, the greenhouse, I'm considering two permanent vacancies. The GM and the TA would be the greenhouse manager and the technical assistant. And our rotating vacancy would be the visiting assistant. This position would be a rotating basis, would be filled in a rotating basis with the other crew members. And the objective of this vacancy is to provide the minimal knowledge to the whole crew, to the whole astronaut, to all astronauts related to food production, to give support, considering that in the case of isolation, in each infrastructure, in each facility, we would have a food micro production. The idea is to, like, if we have a person, an astronaut in the power station or the engineering center that have any issue related to the food micro production, is interesting to have this minimal knowledge, considering that the greenhouse, the astronauts on the greenhouse won't be able to go there during the isolation. And another interesting complementary objective would be to provide a mutual exchange of knowledge, like not only aimed the interaction between action astronauts, but this is really interesting too. But is also to encourage a procreation practice, like to conduct some research inside of this structure with the other astronauts. Like if we, if games, if the visiting assistant would be an astronaut coming from the sanitation center, it would be interesting to have any kind of research conducted in the area of water management, or to assist on the irrigation and on the crop cultivation, any kind of of research that would be useful for both facilities. As I mentioned, two permanent positions. The greenhouse manager would be responsible for decision making, system management, and plan and establish the dynamics of food cultivation and harvest events, to coordinate the experiments and the activities on the laboratories. And the TA would conduct some in situ activities, would be the responsible for installation and maintenance of the equipments, also to monitoring the adaptive behavior of the crops and analyze the environmental data and reports that the other facilities would be providing for the greenhouse related to the food microproduction. Um, the idea is the head of the facility would be assumed based on the experience on cultivation systems and also on the time of experience inside of the habitat in the greenhouse of this habitat. And he will be more responsible to conduct some meaningful activities and meetings with the chiefs of the other infrastructures. And also, I'm considering that this position can be switched between the two, the both permanent positions. And some necessary backgrounds should be the head of the facility would be an agronomist, a biosystems engineer, a biologist, or a biotechnologist. And the rotating vacancy, the visiting assistant would be filled by the other crew members, engineers, geologists, astrobiologists, and others. And as I mentioned, this professional would be responsible to conduct the experiments aimed at your infrastructure and other specific research related to living systems, like, as I mentioned, the crops, maybe algae cultivation, and some research associated to the greenhouse and the specific facility. Some related to the astronaut training program, I'm just considering here some features to be incorporated that would be useful for this training program of the astronauts would be a sustainable human, to provide them the idea of sustainable human presence in space. As I mentioned, have a minimum knowledge about water, food, and air, as I mentioned before, the environmental control and life support systems, and the whole idea of the habitat, also the maintenance and sustainable habitat operation, some recycling practices and other sustainable practices. Also, support long-term effects of isolation, other interesting procedures that I'll be presenting during the protocols. Also, capabilities to handle the architectures and the technologies for human exploration, practice to reduce costs and technical risks in overall systems. Also, meetings for crew decision making, and also it's interesting to conduct simulations and maybe other training activities based to provide the astronauts new skills based on the situations that would be identified at Mars. Like, we have all of these considerations about Mars, but based on what we know here on Earth, but we don't know what would happen when the astronauts really arrive there. We need to considering the living experience by the astronauts. So maybe this would be different that we imagine. Maybe on Mars happen new situations that we are not expecting for. So it's interesting to conduct these new training activities to provide the astronauts new necessary skills. Some videos for astronaut training, just to have an idea. I find this really important. That is how what you eat affects on your brain. So it's interesting for the astronauts to have a minimal idea about this kind of this area of nutrition. That would be what I'm eating and what I'm eating and what is the what are the really use about this meat, this like about what I'm eating. So just to have an idea, for an example, we know that carrots are good for our eyes, for our vision. So it's interesting to have this idea and also to make to have a minimal knowledge, like, oh, okay, I'm eating this carrot, so maybe my vision would be improved, or like would be better. It's interesting to notice this these effects of what you eat. Other interesting things are the 3D printed fake meat. I will be presenting also a picture in the other slides. It's like a video presenting the future of food as they considering like a 3D printed meat. Also, the use of spirulina for fish to fish the food for fish food uh, to like to give the food for the to produce the foods of the fishes, and also the use of spirulina to produce oxygen and food in space. So not only for the fishes but also for the astronauts. The resource necessary for 1 week. As I consider the two permanent positions inside of the infrastructure. If we have the case of isolation, the rotating vacancy, the visiting assistant won't be there. It's interesting to be in their specific facility. So considering these two astronauts, the food is interesting to say that the diet and amount of food to be consumed by each astronaut would be specific to each individual based on in his biotype and this biotype and the routines that they are conducting. So, but I'm just considering a daily consumption of 2.1 kilograms by person by astronauts, and we for a week for both astronauts we would have an amount of 40 kilograms in the greenhouse facility. And the water, considering the water, I'm considering the 3 liters of water by person based on the numbers of what we have here, on what we know that is necessary here for us on Earth. So maybe this thing would change on Mars. We need to consider these. We need to consider this, and our consumption would be 42 liters of water in the greenhouse. And also, I'm not considering the water of the reservoirs of for designated for irrigation for the irrigation systems, because if we have a closed loop systems and circular systems for cultivation to cultivate crops, the idea is that we have a minimal loss. Like just to have an idea, an example, the aquaponics system have an amount of 90% of water that is recycled in this system. So we have a minimal rates of losses related to the water. But we need to consider like what would be the size of the tanks, and what were based on what we have, how many crops we will have in the infrastructure, what are the necessary amount of water to irrigate these crops. Some guidelines should be provided to the other facilities would be the development of protocols and routines designated for food micro production in each facility. Also, a regular and extensive research on the development of technologies to improve specifically mainly crop growth and food processing, provide indicators for food logistics such as food consumption, control of irrigation water, and storage status, and other basic guidelines and training for handling and preventive maintenance of biosystems to be added to the astronauts' routines. So if they discover they find a new interesting way to handle the biosystems and other systems associated to grow crops, would be interesting to be shared by the other by the whole habitat, just to provide that minimal knowledge that I mentioned for the crew. And other basic guidelines would be, I'm considering him, this is a proposal made by me, that I'm considering the greenhouse not only a place to cultivate crops, but also to stimulate astronauts' resilience and focusing on readiness, education, and innovation. And just to have an idea, what I'm telling here in this picture is like we have a greenhouse as a space that mainly associated to the delivers. Like we have the crops, we have some phytotherapies phytotherapics, the medicines, we have the biomanufacturing. We have in the greenhouse, we would have many delivers. But like if we have like nutritious food and also good food with good tastes, this would be providing a well-being for the astronauts. And if the astronaut and also a healthy organism for the astronauts. So if we are healthy and if we are and also if we have a good mental health, this would be stimulating the creativity for the whole crew. And if we are creative, would be more easy to produce, to develop and new technologies, and to also to provide new solutions, um, to increase the performance of the delivers, to like to have a more a high yield production, high yield, and also an extensive production, and this would be more optimal based on what we consider on the greenhouse. So the technologies would be useful and would be supporting the delivers again and again. And so if we have a good technology to provide a good nutritious food, and this circular idea would be the cycle would be filled. Related to the protocols, we have some like specific protocols and routines for the facilities would be the monitoring routines. As I mentioned, that idea of the platform, this would be an interesting approach. If we have like a tablet or a cell phone near of us inside of the greenhouse, these monitoring routines would be more easier. The astronauts would have more time to conduct other specific activities. And also conduct some tasks on greenhouse management with reduced workload. As I mentioned, this specific case of the use of the platform, and optimal performance, and also perform preventive maintenance of the biosystems and preserve the good condition of the cultivation beds of the whole biosystems, the whole greenhouse, and collect some reports from the other stations and compare with the data reported by the sensors. So I'm also considering that in each facility, in each food microproduction, we would have some sensors that would be monitored in the greenhouse. And also some specific protocols. I'm bringing here this paper made by me and Professor Julio. It's called Agriculture in Mars, Habitat Marte Findings, that was presented during the IAC of this year, the Cyber Edition. And we came with these ideas of protocols for food production. This was a result from a year of research, more than a year of research that we conducted in Habitat Marte related to food production and space food systems. So some protocols would be protocols to food cultivation, food system maintenance, build space food systems, build greenhouses, not only the structures, but the environmental control, the food harvesting and processing, and evaluation of contamination and plagues, and also the process of wastes, like not during the harvesting events and also during the cooking. Just to present you, this was presented during the IAC. These are some routines associated to management, maintenance, harvesting, and processing. And as just to have an idea of these pictures, we have some activities like to clean the fish tank and also to harvest the fishes. Some harvesting events that here in the left bottom picture, we have a harvesting event that we are collecting some lettuce to be consumed during our meal. Also the fishes, we are harvesting some fishes. We evaluate what are the healthier fishes to be consumed, and also some water quality analysis, health of the crops, health of the fish too, and many other routines associated to each specific guideline, the management, maintenance, harvesting, and processing. So we have many activities that we conduct there on Habitat Marte. And here, these are some biomass that we produced there. on the biohabitat greenhouse. As you can see, we have some tomatoes, the fish, the tilapia fillet, and also the lettuce, some different species of lettuce, spinach, basil, and peppers, and many others. Protocols of safety. I'm considering here some protocols for fast isolation, evacuation, rationing order, and also to keep the reliability of systems. So in the case of isolation, considering what we are facing here in the proposal of the Habitat Marte virtual mission, the people in each should analyze the available source, mainly specific on what food they can produce have this analysis. Some evacuation guidelines would be more to guide all the members regarding the system maintenance and optimization of food production. So if, in the case of if we have any activity designated to system maintenance and to optimize the food to system maintenance, it's also necessary to optimize the food distribution. Like if we have a facility that that are not able to be producing this food, is necessary to have to start a rationing order and to start the containment and food rationing procedures. And considering to keep reliability of systems, the idea is to monitor and tabulate the responses of the systems to emergency situations and perform the inventory of losses and recovery schedule, and analyze the critical points, and also the tabulate this whole data and see if they structure what are the procedures of the structures that we can recover, what are the equipments and the materials in the structures, resource that we can recover. Some protocols for occupancy and entertainment. Here we have some socialization practices with alternative routines. I'm proposing here just some cooking classes, and also maybe some gymnastics, some exercise too, recreational moments and relaxing areas. The planning of plantations would have also contributions from the entire team, so they can expose their preference of food. So like considering that the greenhouse have a more extensive food production, in each facility the food micro production would be useful to produce some specific food based on what the astronauts of that specific facility wants. So if an astronaut wants a specific crop, want to eat a specific crop, the food micro production would be designated to it too. I'm considering some operational activities on the structure involving the cultivation of food and interaction with plants, and also would have an for to use the greenhouse as a social space, to have to provide the well-being of the astronauts, and like if we have an area with more green, they would mental well-being. Some protocols for food production. This was also considering in the paper of Agriculture in Mars. As I mentioned here, the routines associated to management, maintenance, recycling practice, harvesting and processing, developing some activities on analysis, diagnosis, ensure the circularity of the systems, assure the fidelity of methodologies that are implemented, orientations, and detect some possible failures. And some important features that we can associate in these routines are related to save energy, save and reuse the water, crop surveillance, high yield, guaranteeing efficient production in limited areas, avoid plagues and risks, increase the food logistics, and also provide the monitoring reports. Related to the 3D printing, the food micro production, the food production with the 3D printers. I bring here these both pictures. As you can see, we have like a pancake produced in a 3D printing and also a meat. And the idea of this food production would be to provide diversity, nutritional stability, and also give to the astronauts some attractive foods that would provide more acceptability between the astronauts. Also, resource saving. And related to the spin-offs, some technologies and outputs that could be applied on Earth would be the technologies for efficient crop water usage. We would have some enclosure structures for efficient resource saving and environmental control. As I mentioned, artificial areas with decoupled systems and isolated environments to avoid contamination. The biosystem modeling and sampling to guarantee a reliable and redundant operation on food cultivation. The livers with the lowest possible handling and corrective measures, minimal inputs, and provide more outputs as possible. Also, the implementation of closed loop systems to guarantee the adequate amount of nutrients for the plants, and autonomous managed food systems to reduce extensive workload on traditional agriculture. And the guidelines to be applied here on Earth, on daily life, on our daily life would be the crop water usage to sustain life, develop new abilities to grow food, establish some parameters for easy assembly and maintenance, solutions to keep the confidence related to plant growth. And I'm bringing here two pictures of greenhouse that we have here on Earth. In the left side, we have the biohabitat greenhouse with the two aquaponic systems, the structure that provided us a lot of delivers or outputs that are useful for us, not only for space, but also to be applied here on Earth on vulnerable communities and our extreme areas of the globe, like the Habitat Marte is located in the semi-arid area of Brazil. And we have here, it's an area that faces a lot of droughts and also a high. So it's interesting to have this production of food inside of this area to avoid losses and also to provide a better environment for the crops. And another extreme environment is the location of the FAG, the Future Exploration Greenhouse, that is a greenhouse in the Arctic, inside of the Iden ISS. So we have a really cold area, an extreme area that is not useful to produce crops, but we have this food production inside of the greenhouse in this environment designated, artificial environment designated for this specific purpose. And the impacts to sustainable development goals, the SDGs. I bring here just some goals that are related on my presentation, but in previous mission, it's interesting to show that in previous mission, there was a group that presented about the greenhouse, and they correlate all the SDGs, all the 17 SDGs with the greenhouse. So this is an interesting approach, as you can see. Like we can consider the zero hunger, good health, reducing inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, improve life on land. And I think the main aspect of this whole presentation and the drivers for Earth, the spin-offs, would be to support in the climate action. So we are facing a lot of situation, a lot of problems related to the climate crisis. Our resources are decreasing. We have a lot of losses. I can consider the traditional agriculture that here in Brazil have a lot of has an amount of like 94% of water that is lost. And so we have an amount of resource, of necessary resource that people just don't care. And us and for us that are studying about space and we are having and we need to share the knowledge that we have to support on climate crisis and to support our planet. So there is an interesting phrase that sentence that I want to bring to you is that we can't be more sustainable at all, because our resources are almost finishing, but we can be regenerative. So in the space sector, we have many technologies that are useful. That we have the bioregenerative systems. So these systems can be helpful not only for space but also for here on Earth, for our planet. So these are my reference, and thank you very much. For those who will watch this presentation on YouTube, I'm free for questions too. You can contact me by email, and I'm open for questions and comments by my crewmates. Thank you very much for the attention.